2023 has been an interesting year for Destiny, Bungie, and the community that supports both. In real life moments have both broken our hearts and soured sections of the community towards the game they once loved. Lance's untimely passing shocked us as hundreds of gaming communities rallied together to show not only their support but their respects. Months later, we were given a very rushed and maybe one of the worst state of the game articles we have ever seen. And it just kind of snowballed from there, with the news of layoffs and the final shape being delayed. And while many gaming companies had layoffs this year, internal leaked documents and first-hand accounts of former Bungie employees left the community stunned. The layoffs and delay of Final Shape have been talked to death, so I won't be adding any in-real-life moments to this video. While there have been a lot of positive moments for Destiny this year, we are going to go over the biggest WTF moments that have happened within the game itself. Moments that many of us went, "What the freak is Bungie thinking?" upon experiencing them. Moments that made us cringe that someone thought this would be a good idea for Destiny, either in gameplay, story, or the community. So without further ado, here are the top 20 what the frick was Bungie thinking moments in Destiny. Inflation has hurt us all the past year, but when Bungie announced a $2 price increase to their seasonal stories, starting with Season of the Deep, it left a lot of people confused and angry. While a price increase in and of itself isn't bad, no one really understood what the extra $2 they were paying for was going towards. Bungie already separated the dungeon pass prices from the price of the seasons. To make this even worse, you had to buy the season passes with silver, the premium Destiny currency. And the only options now were to either buy the $15 pack or the $20 pack of silver, which meant that it wasn't just $2. It ended up being $5 to $10 increase, which isn't even the worst money-making scheme Bungie tried to put in game. That goes to at the start of Season of the Wish, a $15 starter pack entered the shop. This was geared towards brand new players and a way for them to spend real money to earn items they could have gotten for free by just playing the game. This pack included Sleeper Simulant, Traveler's Chosen, Ruinous Effigy, an exotic ship, an exotic sparrow, and an exotic ghost shell, 125,000 glimmer, 50 enhancement cores, 5 enhancement prisms, and 1 ascendant shard. While none of these exotics are terrible, none of them are particularly great currently in the game's meta for either PvE or PvP. And the 125,000 Glimmer wouldn't even last very long for a new player because it costs 425,500 Glimmer to buy the complete set of just one subclass. Now, to buy the complete set of all 4 subclasses that take Glimmer, a new player needs 1,702,000 Glimmer. This also doesn't take into account all the bounties or crafted weapons or any of the other places a new player would use Glimmer early on in their adventure. Osiris has always been one of the coolest characters we've seen in Destiny. He told the entire Vanguard off and was exiled for it. He even had a cult built up around him. Not only a cult, but he didn't even kind of really know who was in his cult. When we first got our introduction with Osiris in the game, in Destiny 2's first DLC, he was a standout. He was always the smartest guy in the room. No matter what happened, his presence on screen demanded attention. Even after we rescued him from Savathun and brewed him some quality Final God of Pain tea, he was still the same man, which made it even more jarring when a week after Season of the Seraph ended, he was no longer this man. He went from being the smartest man alive and everybody knew it, to being submissive towards the Cloud Striders. And not just submissive, but outright dumb at times. Pushing us to use Strand, something we didn't even fully understand to the point it got Rohan killed. Strand was the only thing that we could use to stop the radial mast. That's what Osiris told us over and over. But it turned out we just needed a natural, normal bomb. I am all for growth and personality, but one that happens over time and has reason. But that's not what happened here. One moment he was regular Osiris, the next he was a shell of the man he once was, which hit a zenith when we were given one of the most out-of-place scenes in the history of Destiny. We have the Witness fighting the Traveler, Callus and his troops on our doorstep, the Vex trying to get into the VR world the Neomunans are hanging out in, and even hints of Nezrak messing with the minds of those in the Cloud Arc. So what does Osiris do to showcase this intense moment? An 80s style campy montage scene. In the matter of 1 week in-game, Osiris went from the smartest man in the world to a Zen guru. Caiatl may have the worst father-daughter relationship we have ever seen in Destiny universe. Between Callus murdering her favorite pet out of pure jealousy, to Caiatl helping the attempted assassination of her father. A face-off was bound to happen. For a year or more, we all wondered what will happen when they meet again. after everything that has happened. It had to happen, right? There's no way Bungie would completely skip such an amazing story beat after all these years of build-up. Well, that's exactly what happened. In the final moments, right before our fight with the Witness's new disciple, we got one line from Callus, "Daughter," and a "Leave the Emperor to me" from Caiatl. That's it. That's all we got. No speech, no interacting, just a semi-acknowledgement that they exist. What a beautiful moment. If there was one thing we can all agree we loved during the year of Witch Queen, it was the overuse of Escort the Dorito. It was a public event, part of Wellspring, used in the opening of Vow of the Disciple raid, and then again for the weekly Pinnacle mission, Preservation. So of course the community was excited when this tedious mechanic was brought into the revamped version of Lake of Shadows Strike. Of course no one was excited because this mechanic was universally hated and mocked for a year. So in typical Bungie fashion, they took a Nightfall that everyone loved for how short it was and turned it into one of the most frustrating and tedious experiences in-game. Many longtime characters have died throughout Destiny's story. Cayde, Aldrin, the Speaker, Callus, Rasputin, and Amanda. Cayde was in-game for 4 years before his passing, Aldrin 2.5 years, the Speaker 3 years, Callus 6 years, and Rasputin and Amanda the longest, at 9 years. And depending what Destiny 1 character you started, you met Amanda before any of the actual Vanguard members. You only meet the Vanguard for the class you play as during your Destiny 1 mission, then you go to Banshee, then to Amanda. So if you didn't play Destiny 1 as a hunter, you met Amanda before even Cayde. So of course her death being one of the first 3 characters you ever meet would have such an impact that they would do her death justice in game. Nope. They just kill her off at the end of a seasonal storyline. A seasonal storyline and cutscene that will disappear once the next DLC comes out. But her death wasn't the worst example of this should have been shown to us in a DLC this year. Since before Destiny 1 ever arrived in stores, we knew the Traveler, and we knew we didn't have any clue what it was. Then in Shadowkeep, this evil being we didn't yet have a name for was introduced, and we knew there was so many secrets still left in this universe. Then Lightfall came and went, and we not only learned nothing about the Witness, we felt like we knew less. Bungie promised us we would learn more throughout the year and that Lightfall's story would be told more later. Of course, it was a shock to everyone when the single most important cutscene was dropped in the middle of a seasonal story. A story that gave us more insight into this war between light and darkness, to what the Traveler was running from, what the Witness's purpose in existence actually was, and this was given to us in a seasonal story that would eventually leave the game forever. Everyone likes an exotic mission. Outside of dungeons and raids, exotic missions are usually the most unique activities in Destiny. So when an unknown exotic showed up in collections, people were really excited for what was to come. That excitement turned to bitterness when people realized the exotic mission was an alternate path and a seasonal activity. Now, this in of itself is not a bad thing. If done right, could have been a really cool idea and mission. The issue was that deep dives were already divided twice before this. There were people who just wanted to do deep dives and get them over with. Then there were people who wanted to find the taken orbs and go deeper and get better rewards. This made matchmaking hell for players. Then the exotic mission came out, and now this one match-made activity was divided into thirds. Not everybody wanted to do the exotic mission. Some just wanted the seasonal loot. And with join in progress turned off, it became a nightmare for some players. People would leave quickly if the reason why they were doing deep dives weren't aligning with what their match-made partners were doing. Frustration and anger littered the graveyard of match-made deep dives very soon. SIVA has always been a fan favorite, even though it was not a particularly huge part of the game or even meaningful to any lore outside of the Iron Lords. The community begged and drank the copium year after year expecting SIVA to be brought back, and it never did. In fact, Bungie themselves even had to put out a statement that SIVA was probably never returning as it had nothing to do with the current storyline. But then Bungie did bring SIVA back, and not a single person even noticed. The entire city of Neomuna is actually built with SIVA found on an Exodus ship. Then they even power crept SIVA and made basically Super SIVA, which is what Quicksilver is. Bungie gave the community what they wished for, but as if granted by an Ahamkara, twisted the wish. Raid secret chests have always been fun to find in Destiny. While most raids only have 2 secret chests tied to the raid seal, raids that have been brought back from Destiny 1 have had 3. Except for the fact that Crota never had more than 2 secret chests in the original version, no one was super shocked when Crota's Triumph for the seal had 3. The first 2 chests were found fairly quickly, with the community tearing the raid apart trying to find the 3rd chest. Bungie's only tweet about the issue was very vague and hinted that it existed, but wasn't showing up properly. Weeks went by until one twid, under fixed issues, they stated there was no third chest and the Triumph was fixed. When Lightfall came out, everyone was impressed that the load times were next to nothing. Gone was the meme of waiting till the next day to enjoy new content. Then the new raid, Root of Nightmares, dropped, with next to no load times. The community was happy. Then they were not happy. Months and months of error codes, the game being down for hours at a time, people getting kicked from every activity for no reason. They quickly took to the internet to blame the engine or the servers or anything that had a name that they knew next to nothing about how it actually works. Then Bungie put out a statement midsummer on what was really going on. The system they put into place to make sure people could play during heavy load times was working too well. It was going into overdrive while load times were not as heavy and kicking people. Not a single person knows what was going on during Season of the Defiance's story. The Shadow Legion was kidnapping people for some reason, but why? We were never once told why they decided to come to Earth and start putting humans and Fallen in cages. All we know is that they were doing it and we had to rescue them. And then Amanda died because the most wishy-washy character in the history of Destiny, Aramis, may have told Mithrax it was a trap. The Witness was gone through the portal, Callus was dead, and the leftover clones of the Cabal were abducting humans like it was an 80s alien movie. To this day, we still have no idea why the Cabal were doing anything that they were doing in that season. And we probably never will. How hard would it have been to put in they are just using these people for organic materials so they can keep making clones? Or the Witness wants the Cabal to study humanity to know what made them so special to the Traveler. Any of those reasons would have been simple and made sense to the overall story. Instead, we got no answers. When Lost Sectors were first introduced in Red War, we were all excited. We soon realized outside of a cool niche, they were nothing special. So Bungie tried to make them special by changing them and their bosses a little with each DLC. Lost Sector bosses became wanted enemies with spider bounties and Forsaken. Then in Shadowkeep they became haunted enemies with nightmares and extra enemies. Then it stopped. There's been no enemy changes or mechanic changes since Shadowkeep. That wasn't enough to keep people interested for long, so Bungie introduced Legend and Master Lost Sectors that were the only way to get new class exotic gear. Today, most players have all the class exotics they want. What could Bungie do to force players into Lost Sectors? Add better loot? Change the enemies? Nope. Make them the entirety of a weekly story mission. This is exactly what happened 3 out of the 7 story weeks in Season of the Witch. I realize that Nimbus is so cringe, so tone-deaf, so out of place, that I could make an entire video list of why they are terrible. But I'm not going to do that, because the best we can ever hope for is that Nimbus gets forgotten about by Bungie and is never in-game again. Nimbus may be the single most cringy character Bungie has ever written. Not a single line they say are worth the money Bungie paid the voice actor. No, they aren't being cheesy on purpose. Bungie just thought this was good character writing. It's not. It's terrible. The worst I've ever seen in Destiny, to be honest. You are not valid as a character once you try to fist bump me after I end the life of someone's father.
Systems are linked, with 80% of defenses now operational. I'm full of fury, she's got an army, and you got magic green strength. Let's crush this Callus guy. Well, the uglier they are, the harder they fall, right? No? Come on.
Not a single one of those lines are good or in place to the story Bungie was trying to tell. Bungie wanted to bring challenge back to Destiny, and they did, but in the weirdest way possible. They saw the popularity of the exotic mission Seraph Shield Legendary and Heist Battlegrounds and decided to make an entire patrol zone legendary difficulty. Everything was capped at 10 above the player, no matter where they went. Nothing like being one-shot, having a nice relaxing ride on your Sparrow by a hobgoblin standing on a platform 50 feet above your head. The community raged very often when threshers littered the sky and took out players easily from miles away. Bungie eventually lowered it to 5 above from 10, but unlike every other patrol zone in Destiny, you could never be on or over level than the enemies you faced. Which made it even weirder when Root of Nightmares came out and it was the easiest raid ever released. The difficulties were reversed. Suffer in patrol, but you can sunbathe in endgame content. Nothing in the fashion department has been requested more than an all-black shader, maybe Chatterwhite. Chatterwhite has also been asked a lot, and of course Bungie didn't bring that one back either with the raid that it came from in D1. Edgelords everywhere have been wanting an all-black shader to make the game feel more like home, but Bungie never delivered. More pink and pearl blue shaders were given out instead. Then it happened. Bungie announced an all-black color option that could only be used on crafted weapons. A memento was introduced in Festival of the Lost that would hopefully make the edgy preteens happy. It did not. No one asked Bungie to stick 2 giant squares in the middle of the main quest page, but that didn't stop them from doing exactly that. For some reason, Bungie thought it would be a good idea to force players to see exactly 2 main quests and less bounties on the front page of their quest logs. Sure, you could click down and see the rest of your quests and bounties, but we didn't have to do that in the past. We just had our quests where we could always see them. What makes this even worse is when you finish your 2 main quests, nothing else takes its place. So for the majority of a season, you're looking at 1 to 2 giant empty boxes, while your non-main quests that you're still working on get pushed to the second page. Almost every single major character we have seen on screen in Destiny has had at least some kind of build-up. We knew they existed. Maybe we didn't know their exact names, but the idea of them were hinted at in lore. Even the Witness showed themselves in Shadowkeep, and were mentioned ambiguously all the way back in the Books of Sorrow. There's also an argument to be made that the idea of what the Witness would be was first mentioned in Curse of Osiris on the Aeon cult gear. So it was a shock to the community when in the final act of the Destiny story, the second most powerful godlike being was introduced at random. No one had any idea what the Veil was. There were no hints of its existence in game or written lore. Even after the Lightfall story, we were told very little about this new entity. Just this giant cosmic jellyfish that ended up being where all darkness powers came from. The biggest what the frick moment of 2023 had to be the crafting. What started simply as a random YouTube video by Cheese Forever finding a bug with the crafting system on a Friday morning spiraled out of control for the entire weekend. As someone who witnessed firsthand the spiral from almost start to finish, I could say the snowball of this was incredible. Trials players everywhere were clueless of why they were getting one-tapped by an auto rifle. Creators and players alike went to Twitter and shouted for bans to a silent Bungie. It took 5 hours before Bungie would make an official response. To just have fun. Bungie signed off on the bug, making it spiral even more to the joy and anger of the community. Players who had never stepped foot in Trials were rewarded with their first flawlesses. Those who have never attempted Master Raid's one-shot Crota with ease. New rank 11s appeared as more solo Ghosts of the Deep were completed than ever before. No matter how you felt about that weekend, it was by far one of the craziest times in Destiny. Not everything made the cut for the top 20 WTF was Bungie thinking. But these honorable mentions made me raise an eyebrow in confusion at the developer decisions that led to these being in-game. Ghost of the Deep could have been an amazing dungeon if not for one thing, the jumping puzzles. And you can't see it, but I'm putting quotes around jumping puzzles. These 20-minute walking simulators were made more frustrating with the air bubble underwater mechanic taken straight out of Sonic. During Lightfall, we were told that no one knew what Strand was, that we had to master it because the Cabal didn't account for this power with their light-suppressing technology. So why was every major Cabal already using Strand shields? If they couldn't use it and didn't account for it, why did they have access to it before we even did? Similar to using Lost Sectors as weekly seasonal missions, why did Bungie reuse a 5-year-old story mission for new seasonal content? The mission was exactly the same as we experienced during year 2 of Destiny. The only thing different was the voice lines. Even the yellow bar Odinim was chilling on his ledge, the same as he always had. 2023 was both a great and hard time being a Destiny player. While there were positive moments and amazing things brought into the game, they were overshadowed by the most glaring negatives. Let me know in the comments what your biggest WTF was Bungie thinking moments of 2023 were. And if you'd like me to do a top 20 positive moments of Destiny 2023, hit that like and sub button. Thanks everybody for watching the video. I'll see you guys next time. And remember, hunters never die.